All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Level Up podcast. I'm your co-host, Brendan Payne, and I've got a very special guest on this episode, Mr. Abe Safa. Abe, what has happened? It's been a while since you've been on here.
Hey, Brendan. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm excited to be back on.
Yeah, it's good to have you back on. I know we get together and we talk on a lot of different forums, but excited to have you in front of the Level Up audience. So today we're talking about, in a market like this, tight inventory, really competitive, kind of a shifting market, I think, in most parts of the country. We can probably agree what the shift means. Who knows? But it's changing. And so we're talking today about databases, and we refer to them as a data bank. That's a term that I think Greg, probably 6 or 8 years ago, coined the term data bank, because when you talk about databases, in our experience, then that means it brings up that ugly term of like, oh gosh, I've got a prospect and I've got to talk to people and I've got to fill my database with people. Mm-hmm. And so we're talking about data banks, because the data bank is what is going to actually, it's what you build your business on. So maybe just, go through and I want to explain a little bit about what a data bank is, but maybe you can be thinking about right now, it's always important to have one. There's always a need to build your business around a database, data bank. But I want you to kind of think like, what's so important right now versus, maybe 2 years ago or 5 years down the road, and in relationship to knowing that a data bank is, there's a few things that it does for us. One is it's a way that we can put people somewhere that we know we've had a conversation with before, and we can then be able to grow that relationship with them, right? So we talk with people and we get a lot of no's, and we have to have something that we can do with them. So we put them in our data bank, and then we have a message for them. And over a period of time, they start to see us as a resource. Then as a resource, then we become somebody that is top of mind when they're ready to do a deal. So just with that basics in mind, what makes it so important right now to be building that database, that data bank, if you haven't already, or if you're newer in the business?
Yes, I mean, that's a great question. But let me back up a second real quick, because I want to differentiate the difference between a database and a data bank, right? Yeah. So to me, you're spot on the importance of a data bank. But I think the biggest difference between a database and a data bank, to me, a lot of agents out there have a database, which means they've got a CRM. Some people have an Excel spreadsheet, whatever it may be, with just a list of names and numbers. Okay. If all you have is names and numbers, that's not a data bank. Okay. It's just a list. Now, you could call it a database. The biggest difference is when you start working that list, as you said, nurturing them and checking in with them and communicating with them on a regular basis, and start segmenting it, okay, which I think is the most important thing that you can do with a database to turn it into a data bank. This way, at any given moment that, okay, if I needed a listing today, okay, if I was going to come into the office today, I needed to get a listing, I know exactly which 10 people to go to within my database that I can call and have a very high likely chance of getting a listing from them. So when you're able to start segmenting your database in that way, you've got your prime leads, and then you've got your secondary leads, and then you've got your general database after that, and have the ability at any time to go in and get a listing or scale up your business if you wanted to have a big month. That, to me, makes it a data bank. It's almost like an ATM machine I could go to at any time and be able to withdraw money.
Yeah, I actually wrote down. So one of the differences, aside from having more information, so more than just a name and a phone number and an email, is it's really about a different mindset about it. Yeah. So what you're describing there is it's the ATM part. It's the bank part. I can go and I want to ramp it up this month. I've got the ability to go to that data bank and actually make withdrawals. All right. Got it. Love it. Okay.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. That's a huge difference.
And then the importance of it now in this market, like you said, it's always important. Like you should have started building a data bank is when you first started the business. Okay. But when it comes to a shift in market, having that relationship with the people inside your data bank, people that you've been talking to for a couple of years and through the ups and the downs, and people you've been talking to in the last 2 years with the COVID craziness that we've had and the way the market's been, that those conversations that you've had over the last couple of years with those people really translates to tremendous value when you get into a shift in market. Now you've built that trust with them during the time that they weren't selling. You provided value to them. You've had conversations, and now, like my belief is, there's a backlog of sellers out there in this country right now that are itching to get in a market, and we're gonna see this bottleneck of sellers hit the market here real soon. So because you and I and the way we train and coach our agents to do is build a data bank, you have that ability right now to tap back into that data bank and talk to the people you've been talking to the last couple of years and fish out the ones that are ready. But I think, when it comes to a shifting market, when it comes to uncertainty, when it comes to confusion as to where we headed as an industry, as a market, as a homeowner, whether it's or as buyer, this is the time where having access to people that you can reach out to that know you, trust you, is where it really starts to pan out for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so backing up, you mentioned the time to start is when, or you should start building the database as soon as you get in the business. Now, there's a lot of people that probably, maybe they're newer and they haven't started it, or they just have the emails and the phone numbers and the names. Here's another take on why it's so critical, what you just said, to start it early, do it always, and then continue to replenish it. Because if you think about when you start as a newer agent, then every conversation that you have, the first ones are going to be the worst ones of your career. And then 1,000 conversations in, they're going to be worse than ones you have 6 months later, but they're better than the initial ones. So the fact that you're going out and having those conversations, you're going to improve over time. Don't you want to have an opportunity to maybe get back in touch with people that you just were able to get some contact information from early on? And now, as your skills have progressed, if things have changed in the market, if things have changed in their plans, you've got that bank to go to and make a withdrawal and talk to those people again. The other part is, like, right now, these conversations are much easier. And let's make sure that I clarify there. I'm not saying that going and getting someone to sign paperwork with you for a listing is much easier today. I'm saying the conversation that results in you going and putting someone in your data bank and kicking that process off is so much easier, because there's so much change happening and the market's so crazy. Everybody wants to talk about real estate. So you can go and pick up the phone, and even though it's tougher for buyers now to buy and sellers are ecstatic, like, you can pick up the phone with just about anybody and ask to talk about real estate, and they're like, okay, let's talk. They've got an opinion. They want to hear your opinion. They want to ask you what you predict. They're going to tell you what they predict. That's a pretty easy conversation to have. So there's not been a better time in recent years where people are willing to engage. And the other part is, if you've been in this market or in your market for a few years, and mentally you go, you know what, I've been working on this. I've been paying attention. I've got a good database of people together, a good data bank of people together. Realize right now you have to keep building it, because it's being decimated right before your eyes. You have no idea how many people that are, because of the turnover, there are people that you had in your database and they're gone. And so you have to, like, double down and put more people in there, because all it takes to convince you that you don't have as many people as you thought you did is to go and start working in your data bank. And then you'll find out, my gosh, 25% of them have already sold and they never called me. Right.
Yeah. Even worse, I never called them.
Yeah. Don't blame it on them.
Yeah. It's not their fault. I mean, you put them in a database and they never called them.
Yeah.
I think that's spot on, Brendan. And yeah, if you haven't started, you've been in the business for a few years and didn't start from day one, look, it's never too late. So I always look at building a data bank as the first step from going from an agent to an entrepreneur, right? We both, I mean, I'm sure you've read multiple times the book E-Myth by Michael Gerber. I think one of the best business books ever. And he talks about being a technician and then being an entrepreneur. Agents start off as technicians. You're out there, you're fielding phone calls, you're running around all day long, working day and night, you're on the front lines, right? So when you start building a database and turning it into a data bank, okay, then that's your first step from going from a technician to an entrepreneur, going from an agent to a business owner at that point. That's the first step, because none of us are excited about making phone calls every single day to get business, right? So as you start building this database of you, this is future business for you.
Yeah.
This is come list me calls down the road, if you work it properly. So who doesn't want their life to get easier year after year of being in the business?
Yeah. This is the way that this is the tool that you use to get paid in the future for things that you did today or things that you've done in the past. So very important. And the other thing is, it's really cool is when you do start it, there's this point where everything comes together. Like when we have newer agents come in and they really adopt this, then they start making calls and they start filling up their data bank with people. And it's frustrating because their skills aren't that great. And they are making a lot of calls and they're getting a lot of no's, but they feel like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then all of a sudden their skills get a little bit better. And then they start getting some calls back from people that they talked with months ago, especially in a market like this, where there is a lot of demand for everybody seems to be talking about and wanting to make a move. Well, just imagine 12 months goes by and you've got now a 12-month skilled agent who's made a lot of phone calls and has really increased their communication skills. And at the same time, they had a ton of people in their data bank from the previous year. Well, they're going to keep doing what they're doing with their increased skills, and they're going to find immediate business that helps them right now today. They're going to go find somebody that's ready to move in 30 days. At the same time, what we call the compound effect kicks in, and the people they were talking to a year ago that were a no, they become a yes. And so now you've got your immediate business that you're going and looking for every single day. That combined with all of your data bank that's starting to pay off. And you can see over the course of 2 or 3 years, that's how agents come in from brand new licensee, 0 deals, zero experience, and their growth trajectory is just like it's that hockey stick. They start here, see a little bit of success, and then boom, they're all of a sudden they're doing 60, 70, 100 deals in the first 3 or 4 years. That's exactly how that happens, right?
That's exactly how it is. Yeah. And that's how you see, like you see agents. Like my first year, I made 12,000 contacts. So I talked to 12,000 people and I did 41 or 42 deals. Second year, made 8,000 contacts and did 71 deals. Third year, 4,000 contacts and 112 deals. So every single year, because of building a data bank and starting off early with that, I was able to work less hours making outbound calls because I started getting inbound business. I started getting these people calling me that I talked to 5 years ago. Now all of a sudden, oh, Abe, I've been getting your updates for a while.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be in town. Can we talk? I'd like to sell my home or condo. But it's because of that compound effect that you're talking about. You just keep building it and then nurture it. And then it's going to all of a sudden start to trickle in little by little every year.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, agent to entrepreneur with the E-Myth. That's what this podcast is. This is, our goal here is to be able to show people how to go from a new agent all the way through an entrepreneur, where that just basically means that you're freed up. Like you have a business that doesn't necessarily require you to do in year 4 what you did in year 1, which then means you can keep doing it. I mean, imagine if you still made 12,000 contacts a year, what your personal production in real estate would look like. Yeah. But instead of doing that, you had time freed up to now take other roads and other options and create other streams of income that if you still had to do that and we're only doing 40 deals a year, then you wouldn't be in that position. So that's really it creates that freedom for you.
Yeah, and the ability to scale, as you said. So if you don't want more free time, then keep making the contacts and building that database, and then you're just going to grow that much quicker and do that much more in production.
Yeah. So right now, let's kind of finish up with 1 or 2 things. Whether you have 50 or 5,000 people in your data bank, what are 2 of the most important things right now that you see that somebody should be doing with their current people to make sure that they're withdrawing everything that's possible.
I think the most important thing that you can do with your data bank is segment it. But by far, no ifs, ands, or buts, it needs to be segmented. What I mean by that is you've got to create small pockets of people. So this way you're not going into a database and have 1,000 people and have no clue who's who and who's doing what. So what you want to do, obviously, is separate sellers from buyers. That's the most basic segment. And then you want to do what I call ABCD, right? What you want to do is you want to take your hottest leads. Okay, hottest leads for me, each person might be different. For me, it's someone that's going to be listing their home or condo in the next 30 days, or very likely to list in the next 30 days. So those people I'm going to tag with, call them my A leads, right? So those are going to get segmented in a separate folder or tag, or depending on what CRM you're using, but those are going to stand out from the rest. And then the people that aren't selling in the next 30 days, but might be selling in the next 6 to 12 months, those are going to be my B leads. So those will also be segmented or separated from the general database. Okay, and then there's going to be C leads. For me, is someone that is not quite going to do something in the next 12 months, but kind of we've been having a conversation, they're on the fence, maybe a year or two down the road. I'll tag those as a C. And then I've got D, which is the rest of the general database. Okay, but I think it's really important that, when I go in every single morning, I open up my CRM and I'm looking at my A leads. And these are the people that I'm talking to on a daily basis, because the next conversation is very likely that they're going to list their home. So I think the first thing that you can do, the most important thing, is start to create some sort of segmentation so you're able to filter out people and be able to go in as needed to have conversations with them. And another thing to segment them is where they own. If it's a condo owner versus a home, what community they own in, what building they own in. So if I sold a condo in a Breakers Resort, I can go into my CRM right now and pull out every single person that I have that owns a Breakers. So then I can actually call them or send out a campaign to them or whatever it may be. But I think segmenting, by far the most important thing, in my opinion, to do with your database to start.
Yeah, I love that. And I would say that with a couple things on that. One would be, don't get so caught up in trying. I know there's people probably right now thinking, well, somebody told me I should have hot and nurture and never talk to again. And then somebody else is saying, well, I was just told to have A and B leads. Listen, the program you put in place is not what makes the program work. It's what you do with that program. So Abe uses A, B, C, D. If I went and said, Abe, tell me what you do with your A leads, he can tell me this is what I do with my A leads every single day. And then after a certain period of time, if they don't respond or they hit this threshold, they are no longer an A. Okay, well, what do you do with them then? Well, they become this. And now he knows what's going on with that. C leads, he can tell me the exact same thing. That's the important part. Call them what you want. Have 2, have 3, have 5, make it manageable though, and run those segmented areas of your data bank as if someone was going to come up to you and say, show me all of these, and now tell me what your process is for all of them. That's the important part. Don't get hung up. I think a lot of people fail to take advantage of this system because they spend so much time trying to figure out this perfect system, and it's not the point. It's that you know what you're doing with them, and you've got a certain process in place for all of them, right?
That's an excellent point. Yeah, so important. And yeah, you want to call them hot, warm, cold, whatever you want to call them. It doesn't make a difference. It's the process and what you do with them, and then also, not being attached. Like, don't get so caught up in, if you are going to call them hot or A, whatever. Don't get so caught up with, man, I got to keep them in there. The moment that you feel like, hey, this guy is not so hot anymore, yank him out of there.
Yeah.
To me, my A folder consumes so much of my time that I want as little people in there as possible, not a lot of people, right? So the more I put in there, the more time consuming it becomes for me. So the moment that I realize that they're not that hot, I'm moving them to B, C, or D, or wherever it may be. I'm not going to let them consume my mind space and my time.
Yeah. So huge, especially with and you, I'll credit you with getting me paperless in my lead follow, because I was old school, right? And had an actual red folder with my hot leads. Red means hot. So I had an actual red folder, paper leads, and that's what I use. That's what I was trained on, and that's what I had. Now every day when I came in, I'd have to look at that folder. And when it started getting thicker, I'm like, all right, now I got to go through this folder because there's no way I can work all these. And I'd call them, dump them, throw them away, hand them to somebody else to work. Now that everything is online, then it's easy to, like, all of a sudden you look, you run your hot leads, you got 35 hot leads, and I don't even remember who this guy is.
Yeah.
You have to be in those every single day on those hot ones. And then maybe your next one is once a week or whatever your program is.
No question about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Good stuff. Abe, so tell us, for those that may want to, interact with you more or get a little bit more information on what you're doing. I know you're doing some things outside of, your personal business, some coaching and stuff like that. Maybe share with the audience how they can get a hold of you and anything else that you're up to.
Yes, I mean, the easiest way is on Facebook. Just reach out to me, message me, whatever, or go to realestatesalessolutions.com. So Greg and I are doing, we've got a couple of different coaching programs, you as well. We've got some coaching classes on there as well. We've got Agent Success Academy. That's a group coaching program, very, very low monthly fee. We're seeing amazing results from that. I've got agents doubling and tripling their production based on those weekly coaching calls that Greg and I do to that group. So if you're interested in that, check it out. Or if you just have a question, you want to shoot me, I'll be more than glad to help in any way I can.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Yes, definitely go to Real Estate Sales Solutions. Tons of great content. You guys have got some really good courses on there. And also just, we don't ask for a lot on this podcast. We really want to be giving more, but I'm using this one in the next couple to remind you and ask you for your help and support. If you know anybody through the southeastern part of North Carolina, we are going into and opening a new team, new office in the Wilmington, North Carolina market. So if you know anybody there that we should be talking to, we would love to hear from them, and I'm excited to be growing that, and more to come on continued growth. And we just want to continue to get you guys the messages and the information that you need. So until next time, please subscribe and give us a like and a review, and helps us continue to bring you guys the content and the topics that you guys want to talk about. So Abe, thanks again. I appreciate you hopping on here, and we'll talk again soon, I'm sure.
My pleasure, Brendan. Enjoyed it.
Talk soon.